So let's now think about the synopsis of this story. Uh, about 30 years ago, uh, there was a woman called Azizeh, and she had three sons. Mehmet was one of them, and he falls in love with this woman who was in love with Hazar. Hazar goes to the army, and her family marry her off to Mehmet Aslanbey. They have a son, and they name him Miran. When Hazar comes back from the army, he realizes that she's been married off and that she's desperately unhappy. They decide to run away, and it's not quite certain. The truth will hopefully come out in future episodes, but it's believed that Hazar is distracted by his father, and there is a shooting. We don't know if her husband kills her and then himself, but Azize makes this little boy believe that his parents were shot by Hazar Shadoglu, a blue-eyed monster. And for the next 27 years that follow, right up to his age of 30, he's been brainwashed by his grandmother Azize about the shadow blues, and his sole purpose in life growing up has been to take revenge for the death of his parents. 2 years ago, they plan to start having relations with the Shadoglu family, so that they can learn to know Miran as Miran Aksoy, as a businessman who has a few business dealings with them and saves their family business. He helps them with lots of investments and lots of properties and their land, and basically becomes a very, very benefactor type figure, and helps them with their family enterprise. So they get to know him, they get to trust him, they get to rely on him. And once he gains that trust, he knows that they will never say no to anything that he requests of them. It's believed that about a year, for a whole year, he investigates about Hazar and his family and his pride possession, his elder daughter Rayan. She is an exceptionally beautiful young lady, legendary in all of Midyat for her beauty, for her mane-like hair. She had the most beautiful hair, and I think that's why they've chosen this actress to play this role. She's a great horse rider. She loves riding the horse and taking her out around Midyat. And she's very wild and free-spirited, just like a horse in nature, really. He investigates everything about her, and with the sole purpose of marrying her and somehow dishonoring her and thus hurting the murderer of his parents. So having done all these investigations, it comes up to the 2 years, and as he was making one of his trips to Midyat, en route, has a car accident with Rayan, who had been riding her horse from before dawn, before sunrise, and she was at that time returning back to the mansion, and her horse jumps in front of Miran's car, and she falls to the ground unconscious. He picks her up, puts her in his car, and she wakes up and she tries to get out. He stops the car. She comes out of the car thinking that he is going to kidnap her, and so that's how their first encounter physically takes place. And she's very naive. She's very scared of her grandfather, who's a very cruel man, with whom she's oftentimes fallen into trouble for riding her horse without permission, leaving the mansion without permission. And so she's petrified what's going to happen. Miran says, I can't leave you, let's go to the hospital, check you out. She says, no, I'm very well, I just want to go home. He says, well, I'll take you. She refuses. He says, well, I can't leave you in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to take you home. He keeps to his word, and he takes her home and uses the opportunity to make this sudden, shocking announcement of a proposal to her grandfather, Nasu, and leaves. Nasu gathers his sons and decides that Miran can have one of his granddaughters, but it will be Yaren and not Rayan. The reason is that Rayan is not actually his blood granddaughter. He has never had any respect for Rayan because 19 years before this all happens, Hazar marries a widower. She was pregnant at the age of 17. She becomes a widower, and he takes pity to her. Her name is Zahra, and she's the most loving mother. Marries her, and Rayan is born. So although he's not Rayan's blood relative, he has loved her more than any father can love their own natural biological daughter. They also have another daughter called Gul. She's only 4 or 5 years of age. She's tiny, and she's the cutest little thing on Turkish TV that I've ever seen. She really is an absolutely delightful young girl.